Muscatine Insider is a show that features upcoming local events, candid interviews, community drives, performances, and more, produced by MCC TV. We're broadcasting to you live today from the facilities of the Muscatine Community College Video Department and MPW Digital TV, Muscatine Access Channel 9. For today's episode, we are taking a closer look at the beauty of marriage and how uniquely it is celebrated in Liberia as opposed to how it is celebrated here in America. About 1 year and 7 months ago, God crossed the paths of a young man from the countryside of Liberia, West Africa, with that of a small city girl from Iowa. In 10 weeks, Lee and Kaseyu will be united in holy matrimony. Lee was born and raised in Liberia, West Africa, and Kaseyu was born and raised in Des Moines, Iowa. They both grew up in absolutely distinct cultures, so Lee and Kaseyu have both decided to honor and observe their cultures by having a Liberian traditional wedding and an American Western wedding. So, stay tuned in for Muscatine Insider with Lee Wonten. For questions, comments, or to be on the show, please feel free to contact us at 110mediaproduction@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook, 110 Media Production, Instagram at 110 Media or 110 Lee.
Hello and welcome to Muscatine Insider. My name is Lee Wonten. I am your host and producer. For today's episode, last week we were here on this channel talking about the beauty of marriage and how uniquely it is celebrated in Liberian and American culture. And so last week we talked about Liberian culture, how Liberian celebrate their traditional wedding. And so today we're here to talk about American Western wedding. And so I'm very honored to have these beautiful faces sitting here with me today. Pastor Dan from Calvary Church and my own fiancé. But before all of that, I would like for my guests to introduce themselves and tell our viewers more about yourself, what you do, how long you've been doing what you do.
Well, my name is Dan Shoepf, and I serve as pastor at Calvary Church and have been there for 41 years. I'm the old guy, and so I've been involved in a lot of weddings, and I'm sure excited about this wedding that's coming up between these two characters sitting to my left, okay?
Yes, that is right. And so, so talking about the beauty of marriage and how uniquely it is celebrated in both Liberian and American culture. So knowing that I'm a Liberian, I moved to America in 2012 to be reunited with my family. And I went to Muscatine Community High School, went to the college out here for 2 semesters, transferred to Kirkwood, and this fall I'll be transferring to Iowa State University. And so my family and I moved to America in pursuit of economic opportunity, educational opportunity, religious freedom, peaceful living, and in pursuit of happiness. And so in my career pursuit, I stumbled on an American beauty that caught my attention. And so by the grace of God, in 10 weeks from today, I will be getting married to Miss Kaseyu James. And we got engaged November 29th, 2017. And the wedding planning process is going great. But today we're here to talk about, so both of us, we have 2 different cultures that's come together to become one. And so her family have been asking me a lot of questions about Liberian traditional wedding. And my family too have been, asking her about American Western wedding and all of that. And so that's why I have Pastor Dan here on the show with me today, who will be telling our viewers on all of this on American Western wedding. And so my first question, in Africa is a continent that's full of different culture. And so every African country and sometimes some different tribes have their own cultural value, have their own way of doing things. And so America is a big country. And so like, how many kinds of weddings do they have in America? Like, how many types of weddings, say?
Oh my goodness, there are all kinds of weddings. There are secular weddings, there are church weddings, there are weddings which include a lot of worship. It's just a wide variety. And I feel a little bit like I might be in a counseling session with the two of you, because we actually met together several weeks ago for a one-day overview of what marriage and weddings are all about. And the first thing I said was this: a marriage is a cross-cultural event, even in the United States. And the reason it's a cross-cultural event is because you have a man who's from one planet, and you have a woman who's from another planet, and they do not understand each other. Typically, they don't understand each other. And then when you throw the cultural issues, which is what Lee is addressing in this little series, you throw those cultural issues on top of it, you've got a multiplicity of issues that come up all the time. And so we have a wide variety of kinds of marriage ceremonies, wedding ceremonies, engagements, how the families relate, and so on. I'm familiar with kind of what goes on in this particular part of the country, but there's a wide variety. Sometimes God isn't even mentioned. And then other times the family and the couple want to go back to the very origin of what marriage is all about as God gives it to us. So that's, a lot of different kinds of weddings.
Great, great.
And I can add to that, just because of, the wide variety of countries have, and all the different immigrants that have come here over all the places in the world, and over time, it's a mix. It's kind of like a huge world mixing here in the U.S. of the different cultures. My sister recently got married last year, and there were traditions that were mixed in from Turkey and African American weddings, and so it was kind of a really interesting mix. And so it's kind of hard to put a number on it. There's hundreds of different types of weddings, and when they get mixed, ours is a very unique one as well. And so I think that there are those basic ones where it's like you said, Christian or secular, or just the different cultures that you're coming from, the history that your family has. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. So for me and my fiance, we are Christians, and so we are having a Christian wedding, of course. And so so that's why we have Pastor Dan here today, who will be telling us more detail about Christian wedding here in America, and the values that Christian Western wedding hold here in the United States, and what are the wedding that you have been familiar with, you being as a pastor, the weddings that you've hosted, that you've officiated over time, and
Well, a quick story. I've had the chance to visit Liberia several times, and it was a wonderful opportunity for me. There's just a great tradition involved, great family involvement, all those kinds of things along the way that give us a little insight into what marriage is all about. Well, there were a group of pastors there who said, "Pastor Dan, would you talk a little bit about marriage?" And I thought, what can I say to these guys about marriage? I have in their world, they face a whole lot of different issues than I do. So what can I say? So I simply went back to the very foundation of a Christian marriage, which is found in the book of Genesis, where God actually officiates at the first wedding, and he says, "For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they will become one flesh." And frankly, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Sometimes you try to figure out how weddings happen and how they're supposed to happen and who's involved and what family's involved and how families should enter in if there are difficulties. And I had the privilege of listening in on the last episode about Liberian culture and the dynamic of families. So we always go back, in the weddings that I officiate, we always go back to the very roots and realize that marriage wasn't something that was just dreamed up by a bunch of smart people. It was something that God gave us. And you know what? I'm not sure we could have survived without marriage. I really don't. It's like the angels would say to God, "God, you made Adam, and he's not going to make it. He's just not going to make it on his own. He needs a woman. And so God created woman and provided great value to both of them. And that bond is a key part of the emphasis we make for a Christian wedding.
Great. So another thing I would like to say, so, we have a wide variety of people, this is going to be posted online. People are going to view it from Liberia, from parts of Africa, from all over around the world. And so to our viewers out there, let's say there's a person out there who, let's say they're not Christian, or even if they're Christian and they are not considering marriage, like maybe their friends or family or somebody they know have had a bad experience with marriage, and so they have decided to not temper with, like, I'm not going that route. What will you say to them? Why should a guy get married? Why should a woman get married? Why should...
Wow. And I've been married for 46 years, and so I'm glad I did. And my reasons at the time were probably different than they are now. And yet, we live in a world which lacks commitment. We lack covenants. And so we look at things out of convenience. And so I would say that marriage is the closest human relationship you can have. And if you can't be committed in that close human relationship, which actually results often in family and an extended family and so on, if you can't be involved in that level of commitment, then I'm not sure what commitment you ever have. So I think it's a great illustration of what commitment involves. And that's true for Christians, it's true for non-Christians, it's true for Liberians, it's true for African Americans, it's true for Turkish folks, it's true for all, because it's something that God has instituted which provides for good stability within our culture.
And can I speak to the reasons why I decided to get married to you, this beautiful guy here? And I had that same experience that you're talking about, where I was really reluctant to get married because marriage didn't work out too well in multiple instances in my family, with my own parents and with other generations. And so I always looked at it pretty negatively. And I went into that mindset into my college age as well. And so I wasn't really looking out for anybody to get married to, because it wasn't something that I desired with those negative experiences. But then, as you know, I became a Christian in college, and then I saw these really great men, because that was really where my focus was. It was like I was not looking at guys as holding up that standard of, what is a guy supposed to be at, because a lot of them had left or, done a lot of bad things. And so when I became a Christian, I went to the church, I saw really positive male role models. It really reinstituted my faith in men, and really instituted my faith in God and who he was, and be like, there are good people out there are good guys out there. Don't have to be like, a man hater or anything. Like, I can love guys and actually live with them. And so it just really turned my life around, and it was something that I really strongly desired. I strongly wanted to desire a close relationship with a guy and with God. And so that is kind of where my idea was, just seeing how positive and how many there were really good husbands and good fathers at the church. And God just opened my eyes to that. And it really just showed me his goodness as well, showing that there are these people that he's placed on earth who are obeying him and following him and just blessing other people. And so it was a transformation, years of transformation of seeing that positiveness. And I'm really excited because I want to do that with someone I really love, which is you. And I'm really excited to start this journey. 10 weeks.
Great. Yeah, so, since we got engaged, I've been reading a lot of books about marriage, but also something new that I just came across in the Bible. Of course, I've read the Bible a couple of times, but every time you read the Bible, you come across new things. Your eyes are open to new things. And in the book of Genesis, something that I noticed was that God did not bless the man, did not bless Adam until there was a wife for him. And so right there, if I was a preacher and I was preaching out there, I would say that the blessing that is upon a guy's life, the blessing on a man's life is limited to, it's very limited in that for the abundance of blessings of God to come upon that guy, he needs to be united to a woman in marriage. And the Bible says that after God created Eve from the rib of from his bone from his side, God said that, and God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful," and God blessed them. And also further in the Bible it says that he who finds a wife finds a good thing and has obtained favor from the Lord. And so the favor of God upon your life, it is limited until you get united with a woman in marriage, in holy matrimony.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also a while ago, just reading stuff off the internet, this is something somebody posted online and I copied, and I was like, this is very interesting. And the person was just telling people who get married for different reasons, And the person said that do not get married for sex. If that's why in your mind, you're going a different route. Do not get married because you are getting old. Do not get married because you are lonely. Do not get married because you need someone to support you. Do not get married because you need financial help. Do not get married because you do not want to lose the person. Do not get married for pressure. People are pressuring you. You're just sitting here, you're single. Find somebody. Do not get married for that purpose. And it said, do not get married because you admire the whole idea of wedding. Wedding day is beautiful. You see the bride wears a beautiful gown, and it's just a beautiful occasion. Do not get married for that purpose, for that reason. But then the person said, but get married because you are in love. Marry because you want to fulfill destiny with that person. Marry because he or she is your best friend. And when feelings do not matter anymore, when feelings are going away, the Bible says love never fails. Love never fails. So marry because you are in love. And just comparing that with Jesus being, the husband of the church. And Jesus was driven to the cross by the power of love. He went to the cross because he could not see mankind suffering and go to hell. And so he had to die for us. So he went to the cross. Nothing took Jesus to the cross, but the force of love is what drove him to the cross. And that is the force that is driving me and my fiancé.
Oh, that's so sweet.
That is the force that is driving me and my fiancé to the cross, to the church altar, and to get married before God and man. And so, do you have anything else to add?
I don't call marriage a cross. I think that's a little bit risky because people say, well, I have a cross to bear, it's my wife, or I have a cross to bear, it's my husband. And one of the first questions that I ask a couple is, why are you getting married? And they usually say, well, because we love each other. So the next question is, well, what is love? And the answer is often something like, well, it's a feeling I get when I'm with so-and-so. Well, what happens when the feeling goes away? Because it does go away. When I'm sorry to say this, but when Lee sees Kaseu with bedhead and drool coming out of her mouth and she has bad breath early in the morning, he has to say, I love you. Not because he feels like saying I love you, but because you're committed to it. And I again, thinking about the relationship between the Liberian culture and our culture, the family is so involved and so supportive. In our culture, it's more an individual kind of thing. I mean, we're not asking each other a lot of questions about family and so on, but I guarantee you your family has influenced you deeply.
Oh, absolutely.
And yet, if you move into this new relationship without a community, without a group of people who hold you accountable for what you're doing or what you're not doing, and who see your relationship, it's going to be a real struggle. Now, we believe that the church is a great place for that to happen, a godly community for that to happen. but the dynamics that you face as a couple, we are cheering you on, and the people who show up at your wedding are saying, man, we're rooting for you, but if you screw up, we're not rooting for you anymore. You know, we're going to come after you. And that's exactly what needs to happen, because you can't do it by yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, from a Christian perspective, all of us, just like you were saying that, you know, you ask a couple, why are they getting married? Because they're in love. And then what is love? And something too interesting to me that I find out in the Bible too is that it just stood out to me, you know, what is love? And the Bible says that God is love. And so when two couples say that they are in love, they are in God, and God is love. And so when we attended that seminar a couple of weeks ago with Pastor Dan, he was, you know, telling us that we should limit our expectation for marriage, and as we both, if we want our relationship to last and to go forever and to be beautiful, is that we should focus on God. And he talked about the triangle where God is up here and both of us is down here. And the more we go to God, the more we come closer to each other.
Yeah.
And so the more we go to God, the more we come closer to each other, because God up here, he is love. And the more we come over here, the more we come to love.
Yeah.
And we come more united in love. And so, yeah.
I wanted to expound on that point where you're talking about lowering your expectations. I think a lot of people, particularly women in the Western world or in America, they have this like Disney picturesque that was put on us since we were young of like, you need to have this idea of what marriage is like, and it's going to be like a fairy tale. And, you know, a lot of young people have that idea growing up, and then when they get to an adult age and they marry someone, they're like, this is not a fairy tale, it's not a fantasy, you know, and I'm disappointed that you're not doing X, Y, and Z. Then that's where a lot of those like unmet expectations happen. And I think we've talked about that before, where people have, you know, unmet expectations in marriages, but they're not expectations that have been voiced. And so it's kind of like, I expect you to be this person in this marriage, but it's like, you never even told me this when we were dating for years. You never said that you wanted me to be this particular man or this particular woman, and we get married and you're expecting something new or different. Or sometimes people have the expectation that they don't change. And sometimes people have this expectation that it's going to be a fantasy. I love this person the way they are. They are this way at 25 years old, and I absolutely love it. And then they get married, and then they turn 35 or 45, and they're like, what happened to the person that you were when you were 25 years old? It's like, duh, I grew up, I matured, or I changed into a different person. I'm not going to be the same person I was 25. I'm going to be a new person, a new woman. There's that scientific fact for how all your cells regenerate in your body. You're a completely new person every so many years. And so that's like, I'm a new person as the time goes by, and people have those disappointments, and people are kind of like, it just wasn't the same when I was younger. But I feel like I've you know, heard so many sermons and heard other advice from pastors like you, and talking about how the love changes when you get older. And so I think that's what we're learning, is that like we love each other as we are now, as we are 25, but once, you know, we become 35, 45, 75, we're going to love each other, and we're going to grow to love each other as the time goes.
Amen.
And our expectations aren't for us to stay the same. You know, we're going to be like, okay, I don't know who you are going to be when you're older, but I'm committed to you, and I'm going to love you to the person that you are. And I'm drawing from an example of, I know somebody that, you know, maybe this one couple, one of the spouse in the relationship lost a parent, and that changed that person forever. You weren't expecting that to happen, but it can change you. And there's those dramatic changes that happen, and it's like that person is not as joyful as they were before, or something happened, something changed in them because of this life event. But that spouse decided to stick with that person and love them. It's like, I know you've changed because of this unexpected event that happened, but I'm going to love you anyway, and I'm going to continue to love you. And that is what we're saying, and what we're going to say when we stand in front of the church and we say that. It's like, no matter what happens in our lives, I'm going to love you. And so I think I'm just so overjoyed, and I just very zealous to like get this over with and get married and see what the years come, because we're just going to love each other continuously. So
Great, absolutely. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. So even as she and myself were in this engagement season and preparing for marriage, we also would like to extend our prayer request to our viewers out there. Marriage isn't as easy as people explain sometimes. There is talking about it, and there is the actual, there's actual work there. And so keep us in your prayer, and our vision, our prayer, and our hope is that God will keep us together for as long as we both shall live. And so before we close, I would like for Pastor Dan to give a word of advice to young couple out there who are considering marriage, as well as both, us, what they should expect out there and things that will help them and keep their marriage together as time goes by.
So, I suppose perhaps the key thing is to ask yourself, am I willing to have a covenant with this person for my life? Or am I just wanting to be involved in this relationship as long as it's convenient for me? Now that's huge, because guess what? Any person you choose to marry, any person you love or you think you love, is still, they're going to struggle. Your relationship is going to struggle. So there's never a perfect relationship. So when the struggles come, what are you going to do? Are you going to love unconditionally? Are you going to forgive unconditionally? Are you going to serve each other, sort of like Jesus washing each other's feet, which may not be a convenient thing? Might sound romantic. It's probably not very romantic. But anyway, just thinking about that difference between being committed and having a covenant and being a consumer who says, I'll do what I need to do as long as you do what you need to do. But once you don't do what you should be doing, I'm out. And that kind of covenant on the other side is so significant in that relationship.
Great, that is very that's a wisdom, and so yeah, and what I would say too, in the little time that the year that I have known Kaseyu, and both of us have been reading a lot of self-help books as it relates to marriage and all of that. It's to always keep learning, looking out for seminars that are coming up about marriage and all of that. Just keep going to those things that will help you in your marriage. It's just like a sports athlete who, when he graduated college or when he graduated high school, he was a great athlete. But as time goes by, if that person does not practice, they will not be as good as they were yesterday or years ago. But because they keep practicing, that's why they're always best. The man has been the best player for this last 20 years because he always keep practicing and perfecting what he does. And so yeah, so that's something I would say out there to other couple who are engaged or people who are married and having difficulties. Keep learning new things. Keep God as the center of your relationship. And I'll say thank you very much to my viewers out there, and thank you to my fiancé for making the time to be on the show, and thank you to Pastor Dan also out of his busy schedule to make this time to be here. That is something I really appreciate. And I would like to say a very big thank you to my former professor, Mr. Chad Bishop, for giving me an opportunity every once in a while to produce an episode here on this channel. And so I'm very humbled by his kindness and his generosity. Thank you to our viewers. You can please follow us online, like us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. YouTube is Wonten Lee, and Instagram is 110 Media, and Facebook is 110 Media Production. So thank you so much for watching, and we will see you another time.
Muscatine Insider is a show that features upcoming local events, candid interviews, community drives, performances, and more, produced by MCC TV. We're broadcasting to you live today from the facilities of the Muscatine Community College Video Department and MPW Digital TV, Muscatine Access Channel 9. Stay tuned in for Muscatine Insider with Lee Wonten. For questions, comments, or to be on the show, please feel free to contact us at 110mediaproduction@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook, 110 Media Production, Instagram at Wonten Media or Wonten Lee.